Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, June 1st, first trading day of the month. Well, wasn't really what I wanted to see in terms of first trading day of the month. There was just more volatility, intraday volatility. Things did come back at the end of the day, but not your traditional first trading day of the month where we see new money being put to work. There wasn't that thirst for for new maybe pension money, which we traditionally see on the first trading day of the month. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Please go ahead and read the full risk disclaimer here. But everything that we're talking about is for information purposes only. So where did the indices finish for the day? Well, not horrible. S&P finished down 80 basis points. The Qs finished down 0.75%, so a little bit less than SPY. And IWM actually outperformed, believe it or not. So just a kind of a crazy day in terms of that. But once again, I highlighted what you've got going on over here in this column, right? Percentage change from the open. And there was just more selling pressure through the day. So again, it was a little bit of a bend but not break day because things looked pretty ugly, in the first couple of hours of the day. But again, the market seems like it has changed a little bit in terms of we're just not seeing just straight washout days. We are seeing buyers come back in. So that's a little bit different than what we saw for those 7 weeks that were down in a row. A lot of times those situations, we would fall down. We would kind of fight back a little bit in the middle of the day, and then it would just be a bigger washout at the end of the day. So so let's talk about the price action, and we'll talk about kind of what's been going on here the last couple days. So first of all, this is the second day of bad breath. One of the things that I liked last week was that it's kind of the saying that the wind was at the stock market's back, right? There's 3 or 4 days where we had breath that was very strong, right? An expansion of breath. Yesterday and today, that has not been the case. But so again, there's positives and there's negatives depending on how you look at this picture. So a negative, of course, is that we're still below the 50-day moving average. We're still below the 200-day moving average. This could be classified as a bear market rally until we kind of do a little bit more of the heavy lifting. But right, so that's the negative, is that we're in a downtrend. But the positive is when you look at the shorter term trend over here, right, we had this move off the lows. We've basically just retraced some of Friday's price action. so you can't get really, in my opinion, if you're getting really positive and if you're getting really negative, you're not looking at the full picture, and you're not assessing the market appropriately. So I make jokes sometimes about this. Like I think I said over the weekend that I don't want to be perma anything. I think if you're perma anything, it'll essentially lead to losses, especially in this type of market where you have 3 or 4 days of really good price action, a couple days of poor price action too, but really like a bend but not break. So again, like it really, I think, helps to be flexible and to adjust, right? And just not stay anchored until like this is going to happen with this market, right? We're hearing all these we're getting bombarded by different Fed speakers, by different by different market strategists. For example, Jamie Dimon spoke last week, and I really liked what he had to say in terms of, he was saying that the consumer is in good shape. He had a very bullish tone to him, and we've heard that previously, right? We've had a Jamie Dimon bottom before in this market, like going back 2 or 3 years ago, I believe it was, right, where he said some bullish things on the market low, and the market really kind of took to that and took off. Today, he was all over the place, with statements. He was talking about, possible hurricane warning. So, I think that he's basically saying that we've got a lot of uncertainty in this. There's always uncertainty in this market. but there's a lot of uncertainty where this economy and market could go to. So I don't fault him for coming out and saying, you better brace yourself. I mean, is it a little bit too dramatic? For my taste, yes. I think it would be more appropriate if he said something to the effect of, hey, you better have some cushion for this, for this market, for this economy. The Fed is fighting inflation. There's going to be some casualties. So you have to be a little bit prepared for that. To say that that you better brace yourself, I think is a little bit overkill. I don't know what that means, in terms of, oh, this could be a hurricane, and it sounds very sensational, right? I just think for someone in his position should be saying things a little bit more appropriately. But hey, I'm judging, right? That's what we do sometimes. So I think that had an impact on, regardless of me agreeing or disagreeing with the tone that he took today. The market didn't like it, right? The market liked what he had to say with, combination of other things that happened last week, but the market didn't like what, his, the way that he described things. And so here we are. So let's separate some of those things that affected the market today in the price action with, the technicals and what they're telling us. So I was kind of, again, coming into today and this week too, being a bit optimistic, right? Thinking that, hey, if price action stays above 41.27, which is the new value area, this is something that we went over in yesterday's video as well, and if we kind of chopped around here, that would not be a bad thing, right? And by the way, I don't think even today's bar is a bad thing, coming in and digesting this, right? What I don't like is that we kind of slipped into the value area. And, I cut some positions today for losses. I did not have a very good, trading day today. Sometimes this is just the way this is when you have a bend but not break. Sometimes you're taking positions off and this is all on me. I waited a little bit too long to take off a couple positions. I took them off close to the low of the day, and then one or two of them like rallied back a bit. So that does happen from time to time. It's frustration, but you've got to just move on from the frustration and realize that you're going to be unlucky a little bit, or what you did may not have been the best execution for the day. So that happens. I think overall too, sometimes when this happens to me, I come back a little bit more refreshed in terms of like, hey, right now, just as I said a few minutes ago, I don't think you want to be really enthusiastic about this market, but you don't want to be, doom and gloom either, right? And you've got to be somewhat balanced and being able to kind of move very quickly with this market and, buy some things that have been acting well into a little bit of support. Right. So I'll give you a couple examples in terms of what I mean. But yes, I would like 41.27 to hold. So the 20-day, so I've got the 5-day and the 20-day moving average. We're still above those in the short term. Right. We break those and, then we might start to see, and again, I'm not saying 7 weeks of down move, but this was a very impressive bear market rally, right? This probably went a little bit too far to the upside, but we slipped, we held, we try to fight back, we slipped again. So, you got to be careful with if this thing starts to break the 20-day moving average, right? Like we did back in here. We kind of came in and retraced a little bit at the 200-day moving average. And once we broke that 20-day moving average, it was pretty much like over with. We try to fight back a couple times. So that's why I think it's important to watch that along with the 5-day moving average. And we'll see if that, we'll see what happens tomorrow, right? And that could kind of, pivot this market in one particular direction. NASDAQ, still, deeper pullback, but is still doing the same thing, right? Inside value now, first day of the month, but above the short-term moving averages. Oh, I wanted just to go over one negative thing here. When we look at the 1-hour chart, we're leaning lower, right? This is one of the things that I didn't like going into the week, is that we're so far above the top of value for the week. This might come into play again, this 200 period moving average, if we see a little bit more downside action. You could see that this is kind of rising. So, you know, if you've been really disciplined and waiting a bit, you might get a chance here to kind of put some money to work. If, you know, but again, it's going to depend on that 20-day moving average as well. But if we kind of hang in here and at some point like this week, this 200 period moving average kind of catches up, that might be a little bit of a better setup. But we're kind of like hanging here between like an air pocket on the 1 hour chart. We're below this R1, which is an extension from this value area, and we're just above here. So it's not a great, like it's not a lovely looking picture when we look at that. NASDAQ, again, it's kind of odd, but you could see we're hanging above this R1, right? Again, same concept. You know, that's the extension away from this week's value area. Also, the 200 period moving average is down here. So you're going to want to see price hang on to 12,490 if you're a market bull. It looks a little bit different in the Qs. It looks a little bit more straightforward with NASDAQ futures. What about the small caps? Well, they were leading lower right from the beginning of the day. You could see on the 1 hour chart, again, it looks a little bit of a different picture here, but you know, we did pierce that top of value, but we're holding it. Again, it's not a great looking picture. We're going to need buyers to kind of come back in and think that this market is interesting in here. Note also IWM actually stayed above value. So again, these things are they're very close, right? But you know what we want to do, what we want to see is basically buyers kind of come in here and reinforce last week's price action and kind of move from there. You know, and again, that might be something to kind of sell into a little bit, right? And to lighten up, right? So again, one of the points that I was trying to make here is not being too enthusiastic, right? We know that you know, the Fed seems to be, we heard Bullard talk today, all kinds of mixed messages. You know, I think what I gathered was that, hey, they really got to watch inflation, but they're also dancing around, you know, an election this year. So it's like, hey, well, we're going to raise rates a couple more times, 50 more basis points, you know, twice. And then they're going to kind of see how the data comes out, right? So that could lead to more rate hikes, or that could mean that they pause while the midterm election goes on, because it is political, and then they start again, you know, once that takes place, provided that the inflation is still high. So again, it's a very complicated market right now. I just wanted to check one other thing in here too, which is bonds. Bonds at one point were down about 0.5% or so, right? They're hanging on to this bottom of value that's 138.20. That's a level that I would also watch. Another thing that I keep saying in my member notes, in my notes, my pre-market notes that I send out to members, is I'm definitely watching what bonds do here as well. All right. So a couple names that I thought, well, so first of all, let's look at what happened in some of the sectors today. Just amazing. The energy names, which looked kind of exhausted yesterday, right? Oil went down. One thing that I always note, even if you have a really ugly looking candle, right, as we did yesterday in energy stocks, the trend didn't change, right? We held and this is again why I have the 5 period moving averages on my chart, right? So as ugly as that candle was yesterday, right, and some of them looked much worse, most energy stocks did not lose the 5 period moving average, right? So that just means that the trend is intact. And we saw all kinds of call buying in the energy name again, energy group again. I actually took a position here in this Terra Resources, right? I just saw the first call buyer I thought was notable. The second time, when I see big repeat activity, I join with it. The level, it could not get above, and I hate adding trades at this point, but I just figured if it pulled back, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it did get stuck right at the top of value for the day. All right, so that's that. But SLCA saw a call buyer. I'm watching 1815. for this name. Schlumberger, which was a trade that I was in last week. The breakout is still active. This one saw a little bit of a call buy or two, but there's like 5 or 6 of these different energy names that all saw, call buying in each. The biggest that I saw was the AR. All right. A few other names to kind of go over, right? One name that I've been long for a bit is this LNTH, right? So you got your second inside day with this. Again, it's still a little, it hasn't really pulled back. Maybe these pullbacks back to the 20-day moving average have been a little bit better, but you have to say, like, this is pretty nice looking in here. So that's another name that I was looking at. I thought Salesforce, did a good job today. Finished up 9%. Again, look at where it's stalling. Right at the 50-day moving average, right? So again, this is a little nitpicky, but it did finish below that 1-hour VPOC. So it went above, couldn't hold it. I tried trading a little bit of Microsoft just for a day trade. This, didn't work as well as I wanted it to. I took a target at 277. I ended up getting stopped. CB was a name that, I like the insurance names. However, this thing just went down. And it broke the value area for the day, and this is one of the ones that I got stopped out in and recovered quite nicely, right? Another, there was a report out last night in China about lithium, right? The lithium names have been absolutely on fire. These names came back in a little bit, so I added a trade yesterday in this. I added to it this morning, and unfortunately, it just could not stop going down. I did try to kind of, off of this move, I added it back. Unfortunately, it's back in here. So there's a VPOC down in here. So if I get stopped out again in the trade, it happens. So the main thing when you've got price action like this, right, is to follow your stops, right? Follow your plan, right? And then just realize, like, today just may not be the day. And, I say this all the time in the trading room, but it's okay to have one bad day, right? What you really want to try to get away from is to, like, have trades, the same trades, ruin your week and even your month. So I don't do that, right? I learned that a long time ago, is that, even if it's at the worst spot where you take off a trade, so be it. A couple other names, right? This is one that I got stopped out in yesterday. I liked how it looked today. I liked how it originally looked, right? This is one of the shipping names, so I got back involved in this one. Still, I'm looking for a nice, break above here. But the shipping names, they pull back. They're very whippy names. But I like how this is looking. It didn't close on the highs, but I gave this thing another shot. DQ is a name that I hit a target in pre-market, right around the open. But it's still, again, very, very difficult. Still above the 200-day moving average. So I'm still holding it for now, and I've taken several targets. JD is another name that in the China space that saw repeat option activity today. Just a few other odd names. Fiber. Right, this is Frontier Communications. Saw a couple times option activity. I don't know what's up with this name, right? But I know that there's a VPOC up there that you could maybe take a target if you're long this name off of 2739, which brings me to another name in this space, which is the Sierra Wireless, which has been acting very, very well, right? Move, on earnings, kind of came in, nice little bull flag type pattern or some type of a pennant. Not a perfect pattern, but look at the kind of launch pad from this, and moving higher. So, this is a full-on breakout, I believe, and acting really well in a tough market. All right. A couple other names too that I've been watching is, another group that was super hot last week was the chemical group. Right. Some inside days for the chemical group. CC was a name that I'm watching. That's a second inside day, right, for this name. LYB, I actually bought some shares today in LYB, a little bit of a pullback on the breakout, right? OLN is another one too that acted very well last week, right? So you actually want to see a little bit of a pullback, right? You don't want to see the pullback, get violated where, it pulls too far back and gets below the 50-day moving average, but this might be a setup for tomorrow, right? And it kind of came into here and it found some support, found some buyers. All right, guys, that's it for today. As always, I show my trading blotter. CEG was a name that I added last week, right? That I took a target in this one today. I added back to this name yesterday, right? And made a nice move back to because I added like in this weakness yesterday. So again, this one I was able to get to work. So I thought pretty well. And then the last one is SMCI, which I've been holding for a while. This is super microcomputer. It's also super cheap, right? Which this market likes cheap names right now. So you could probably draw at this point a trend line in here. Let's see if it can kind of get a little bit further. I'm looking for it to get up to basically 53.39, and then I might take some off into that. All right, guys, that's it for today's recap. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.